I love that we're like 100 weeks into sociology of families, and I'm finally like, hey, let's talk about families. But I've always been kind of the mindset to like work towards like the building of a relationship in this class. And then we finally reach discussing families, and then we'll go on to discuss it in a few different ways. But first things first, let's start with a definition of families. So, families are groups of people. And think about the ways that they are formed. I think the third one, it can be the most important sometimes in our lives by choice, right? That we get to build our families in a myriad of ways. And a lot of times we get to define for ourselves who is family. There are a couple of different ways that families can originate. So there's the family of origin, which is the one you grew up in, or there's the family of procreation that can be created through relationships. Again, where does choice like matter in relation to families of procreation? Like that you can create who is considered a family member. So one of the things you've kind of heard me say it here and there a little bit, but the term that I've kind of come up with over the years, as I've taught families for like 12 years now, is that families are not always puppies and rainbows. That's why there's puppies and rainbows on your screen. I think it's really, really, really important because not everybody has an intact family. Not everybody gets along with their family. Not everybody has been able to manage growing up without being hurt by their family. Not everybody has escaped without trauma from their family, multi generational or otherwise, right? And so it's a privilege to have a close knit, loving family. And that is not something that everybody gets in life. And so I think it's really, really important to not act like, oh my gosh, everybody has this adorable, loving, perfect, celebratory family, when that unfortunately is just not the case for many of us. And I don't want anybody to ever feel alone in that. So that's kind of the way that I've decided to describe it, that families are not always puppies and rainbows. And even quite honestly, those of us who are fortunate enough to have an intact family, oh, the drama, right? So it doesn't mean necessarily we kind of act like in society everybody else has got their you know what together and their lives are perfect, but that is not necessarily the case, as we all know. That there's a lot of universal experience. And in addition to saying family's not always puppies or rainbows, sometimes when we talk about the various challenges that family faces and or creates for itself, my other term is kind of like, no, families are fun. So there are different things because the family is an institution in society, just like the medical institution, the government, the education institution. On a large macro scale, the family provides a lot for society. So let's take a look at that. The first thing it provides is economic production. It raises workers, number one. Number two, it creates an economy because families need groceries and cars and clothes and stuff, right? The next is protection. Imagine if we were in a classroom together and somebody walked in and they had this cute little 2 month old in a baby carrier. The 2 month old's asleep. They gently put the baby carrier down on the ground. They turn around, they walk out of the room. We're all sitting in class. When class is over, can we all be like, just leave the room? Bye, baby. Right? No, somebody would need to, like, if all of a sudden we needed, like, you couldn't leave a 2 month old by themselves. And so I ask you, what age would that little baby, like, what age would a child need to be where you would feel comfortable being like, okay, bye, you'll be fine? Because I think that age is kind of going up and up and up. So a lot of times my classes say something around, 12, 13-ish that you would feel like, okay, you'll be okay. Some people feel older, few people feel younger, but we as like a family and society offer a great deal of protection to our youth. The next is all the norms, the socialization of children that say please and thank you, don't stand too close to somebody, all the different aspects of how we quote unquote, with quotations, right, should act. A lot of that is being taught in families. In addition to, we talk about in here the second shift and all of that work and how much it's worth, there's also what theorists are calling the third shift, that it's a whole nother level of care that is being done for free, right? No, we're not being paid, for our aging and possibly, people dealing with chronic illness, family members. And they're hypothesizing from a time standpoint that we very well, as generations heading forward, could be caring for aging family members as people live longer, as long as we're raising children. And that's considered, you raise children until they're 18, right? And so we can really, and generations, much like mine, can be in the middle and be a caretaker to children and be a caretaker to aging adults. And so that is something that the family is providing for society. If we were to head to Disneyland right now, or we were to head to a restaurant, or we were to celebrate a holiday, like we do all of these kind of recreational, relaxing, fun times, depending on your family, right? Not always relaxing. Recreation, a lot of times, though, takes place in families. And then we don't always think of it this way, but by virtue of like defining cousins and things like that, the family, like those definitions, provide an element of sexual control in society. Then finally, we have babies, right? So we have people. We continue the growth of our population. Some countries in the world have seen that decline to the point where they're worried and have tried to encourage people to have children. Hey, we'll give you a year of paid family leave. Hey, we'll give you a really generous tax break if you have your second kid, that type of thing, because they see that their population is starting to dwindle. And that's a real problem because you need to have plenty of workers paying into a social system to support aging society members. And so reproduction is another thing that the family provides for society. Now, let's take a look at a few different family structures. So, with marriage equality, we have more freedom legally to marry the person that you are attracted to, that you love. So, in relation to sexual orientation, so marriage equality, thankfully, opens the opportunity for people to have fulfilling lives and have that recognized and respected legally. Single parent families. I was raised in a single parent family, and I know a lot of my students are, and that can impact the manner in which you're raised, the resources which you're raised in a myriad of ways. Multi-generational families. This can be a cultural norm that you are in a family where generations are living together, the grandparents are living with you, and that they're a vibrant part of your everyday life as a family. Blended families, with people ending marriages and getting divorced and then possibly getting remarried. There can be stepkids that are now siblings and coming together. There are couples that choose to be child free. And then there's couples who grapple with infertility. And I happen to be a couple that I'm in a couple that it grappled with infertility. We discovered in our late 20s, when we were looking to have more kids than my daughter that I had when I was 20 years old, that we couldn't. And it was a total surprise to us. And we looked into possibly more invasive fertility procedures, and ultimately decided that those were just too big a risk for us to stomach. And so we were very, very, very excited to decide that, we would complete our family via adoption. And so we went with a private agency, did all of the paperwork in record time, because give me a goal to like be organized or something, and I'll get a binder and kick some ass. And we were very, very, very lucky in 2006 to be picked by a birth mom who was going to place her daughter with us. And we were there for probably the last maybe 2 months of her pregnancy, getting to support her through that. She was living apart from her family during that time. And so I got to be the person to take her to, every fast food restaurant to hang out, and every doctor's appointment and everything. And we got to bring home our daughter. And 6 days after she was home, our adoption agency called that her birth mom decided she could not go through with the adoption, and we needed to bring her back. So they actually were going to pick her up. And I asked, no, can we bring her back so that we can kind of get closure? And after that, we were understandably heartbroken, but completely understand. In the moment, it's excruciating to grapple with, but completely respect the fact that she had her daughter and has the absolute right. And we really, really, really hope that they've had an amazing happily ever after. Um, because our infertility, um, it's my husband. We decided to go an entirely different route, and we looked into sperm donors. I knew you didn't think sperm was coming up in this lecture. And so we decided to do 3 rounds of interuterine fertility treatments with donor sperm. Which, have you ever gone through a donor sperm like catalog? No, most people haven't. I guess it's not even a catalog anymore now. It's WeBe website, and it's fascinating to me because anybody who does donate nowadays, in a world of like 23andMe and all those types of things, there's no more anonymity. That's fascinating to me. We tried 3 times, and that was at that point. This has been years now. So much so that even in the time that we were trying, my dad and his wife had a baby that is, 29 years younger than I am. We just decided that we were going to do either plan A or plan B. Plan A was I got pregnant, we would complete our family, we would live happily ever after. I didn't get pregnant, and we had to figure out plan B. And plan B is pretty darn good. Plan B meant I went back to school because I didn't finish school and really, really, really wanted to be a teacher. Plan B for my husband, he grew up playing sports, loves them, and he really wanted to coach. So now he coaches 4 sports a year, all year round, at the junior high that he teaches at. He wanted to start running, and he runs like a ton, literally 100 miles a month for years now. I just ran a marathon a couple of weeks ago. He loves running. And so we have time for those types of things. We have our daughter who, ultimately completed our family. And we're so, so lucky that we always got the experience of being parents because that has both meant the world to us. And so I tell you this story because infertility doesn't get talked about. And it's kind of like a club that nobody wants to be a part of. And you can't say things like sperm, which I totally understand, but like that ends up being the fact of somebody's life sometimes. I tell you this story because there's going to be somebody in your life that is impacted by infertility when they want to have kids. And if you can be that person that will really, really listen, like who really will reach out and say, how are you? And maybe make it clear that they can say the awkward, tough stuff to you, that means the world. I tell you this story because chances are, if you are a person who wants to have kids, statistically, some of you might deal with a few months or a couple of years of infertility or various challenges. And I just want you to know that even though my story doesn't end on that kind of, and then we had our whole family happily ever after, it totally ends on, and then we had our whole family happily ever after. I'm crying because I'm a wuss. So much happiness and joy and dreams come true came from our story. And so I just, even though it's unconventional in a world of having kids, I just want to throw it out there into the future in case for some reason you're struggling and you want your dreams in life, that you just know that somehow, some way, it'll be okay. It doesn't feel like it, I know, but it'll be okay.